Well, it is 2:00 a.m.
The worst time to be awake.
Right. The house is dead silent. You are completely exhausted. And I mean, you should absolutely be sleeping right now.
Oh, for sure.
But behind your closed eyes, you are currently, you're reliving the exact moment you misspoke in Tuesday's meeting.
Yeah, you're trapped in this dark screening room and your brain it refuses to hit pause.
Playing on a continuous loop.
Exactly. And every single time the scene repeats, your stomach drops.
Yeah.
I mean, you feel the exact same embarrassment.
Yeah.
The exact same spike of adrenaline.
Yeah, that heavy regret.
Right. As if the event were happening right now, right there in your bed.
I know this feeling so intimately. I mean, I remember a few months ago, I sent an email to this really important client, and I accidentally included a typo in the subject line.
Oh, no. This subject line.
Yeah. It was a minor mistake, in the grand scheme of things, but I stared at the ceiling for 3 solid hours that night, just agonizing over it.
It's brutal.
It really is. You fall into this mental pit, and then you just keep re-falling into it over and over again in the dark. Which brings us to our mission for today's deep dive.
Let's get into it.
We are looking at a really fascinating stack of research focused on stopping this exact late-night psychological torture.
And it is a vital topic, too, because that nighttime cycle isn't just annoying. It's actively destructive to your well-being.
Yeah, so we have 2 main goals today. First, we are going to figure out how to stop falling into the same mental pit twice. Like, we need to understand the mechanics of what your brain is actually doing at 2 a.m.
And why it refuses to let things go.
Right. And second, because having the precise words to describe your mental state gives you incredible power over your thoughts, we're going to highlight some highly effective English vocabulary.
I love this part.
Yeah. If you are a learner looking to articulate these complex psychological states in English, these terms will serve as actual tools to help you break the cycle.
I think framing vocabulary as a psychological tool is exactly the right approach. I mean, you cannot defeat an enemy you can't name.
So true.
And in clinical psychology, we have a very specific term for this phenomenon. It is called emotional rumination.
Emotional rumination. Now, when I was reading through the sources, there was this really vivid analogy that completely changed how I view this.
The cow analogy.
Yes. The sources compare the ruminating human brain to a cow chewing its cud.
It's such a grounding biological comparison, isn't it? Just think about the mechanics of how a cow digests its food.
Right. A cow eats a mouthful of grass, swallows it, and then later in the day, it literally brings that half-digested food back up into its mouth to chew on it some more.
Which sounds gross, but...
It is gross, but for a cow, that's an entirely natural, necessary process, for extracting nutrients.
Exactly.
But when human beings do it with negative emotional experiences, it becomes toxic.
It does.
We swallow a painful interaction, and instead of digesting it, learning from it, and moving on, we just keep spitting it back up into our conscious mind to chew on the pain again.
And every time we bring it back up, it tastes just as bitter.
Yeah.
What we need to do here is draw a hard line between 2 concepts that people, and frankly, our own brains often confuse.
Okay, what are they?
Rumination and reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Because on the surface, sitting quietly and thinking about a past event feels like the exact same activity.
They definitely feel identical when you're in the thick of it. You just tell yourself, I'm just processing what happened.
Right, but their functions are completely opposed. If you think about the underlying mechanics, reflection is an active search for an exit.
Okay.
You are looking back at the event to gather data, to map the terrain, so you can actually navigate your way out of the problem.
So it has a purpose.
Yes. Rumination, on the other hand, provides no new data. It is purely chronic self-flagellation.
Well, let's highlight that term for a moment, because that is a very powerful concept for our listeners. Self-flagellation.
Yeah, it's a heavy word.
It is. You are basically engaging in active self-punishment, just beating yourself up over and over for a perceived failure.
That is exactly what it is. It is a mental loop that solves absolutely nothing.
Well, why do we do it then?
Well, if we look at the evolutionary psychology behind this, the why of the mental loop, it actually makes sense. Tens of thousands of years ago, if you made a social mistake in your tribe, you could be exiled.
Wow.
And exile meant death.
Yeah.
So the brain evolved a negativity bias. It loops the negative memory to scream at you, remember this pain, never do this again, or you will die.
So the brain is actually trying to protect us. It thinks that typo in my email is a life or death threat, like a saber-toothed tiger.
Precisely. It is an outdated survival mechanism misfiring in the modern world.
Right.
Because you aren't learning anything new by replaying the email typo for the 100th time. You are just suffering. It keeps your emotional state completely stagnant.
Stagnant. That is a fantastic descriptive word to practice. When water is stagnant, it doesn't flow, right?
Right. It just sits there.
It sits there, trapped, and eventually becomes toxic. When your mind is stagnant, you are trapped in that same toxic puddle.
Very well put.
So a great psychological trick to short-circuit this is to literally say out loud to an empty room, "I'm stuck in a mental loop."
Yes.
Or, another good phrase to practice, "I need to stop ruminating on my past mistakes." Just verbalizing the state you are in begins to strip away its power.
Because verbalizing it moves the experience from a vague, overwhelming feeling into a concrete, manageable problem.
But this brings us to the practical hurdle here.
Okay.
If we know that rumination is just useless self-punishment that keeps us stagnant, how do we actually switch gears?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because anyone who has had insomnia knows that telling yourself, just stop thinking about it, is like the least effective strategy on earth.
Oh, absolutely. Trying to force your brain to go blank is a losing battle.
Yeah.
Nature abhors a vacuum.
Right.
If you try to empty your mind, the anxiety will just rush right back in to fill the space.
So what do we do?
Instead of emptying the mind, you have to redirect it. You have to initiate what we call a cognitive shift.
The cognitive shift.
Yes. You change the narrative by changing the fundamental question your brain is obsessively asking.
What is that default question we're asking when we're staring at the ceiling?
When you are trapped in a rumination loop, the underlying question driving the anxiety is almost always, why did this happen to me?
Okay, I want to challenge the danger of that question for a second.
Go for it.
If I fall into a pit and get hurt, let's say a coworker throws me under the bus during a presentation, totally unfairly, isn't it completely rational to ask, why did this happen to me?
It seems so, yeah.
It seems natural to feel angry, to want to analyze their motives, and to figure out why I was targeted.
Listen, the initial anger is entirely valid. Seeking justice is a natural human impulse. But the danger lies in the duration.
How long you stay there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What happens when you stay in that why me space for 3 hours in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
The why me question is fundamentally a victim's perspective.
Yeah.
It forces you to look backward at a past you have absolutely zero power to change.
So it's like spinning your tires in the mud.
Yes.
You have the gas pedal pressed to the floor, the engine is roaring, you're burning all this emotional energy, but you aren't moving forward. You're just digging the pit deeper and deeper.
That is a perfect visualization. You are generating heat, not movement. If you spend all your energy on anger and analyzing someone else's unfair motives, it strips away your own agency.
Right.
You become a passive receiver of the event. And when you are overwhelmed with the injustice of it all, you are completely blind to where the actual edge of the pit is. If you cannot clearly see the boundaries of the problem, you are guaranteed to step in it again.
So the cognitive shift requires us to stop spinning our tires. We have to move from the passive why me to an active problem-solving perspective.
And that new forward-looking question is, what can I do next?
We shift from why to what.
Yes. You pivot away from analyzing the unchangeable past, and you focus all that intellectual energy on building a firewall for the controllable present and future.
Think about how this applies to everyday life. We all have moments where we freeze under pressure.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say you're asked a difficult question by your boss, you panic, and you mumble an answer that makes no sense. If you go home and ruminate, your brain spins the tires. Why did I sound so stupid? Why am I so bad at public speaking? Everyone in that room thinks I'm incompetent.
Complete self-flagellation. It keeps you stagnant and terrified of the next meeting.
But if we apply the cognitive shift, if we move to productive reflection, we change the question. You acknowledge the reality, but you drop the emotional baggage.
Right.
You tell yourself, okay, I froze today. The next time I am put on the spot, what are 3 opening sentences I can memorize right now to buy myself 10 seconds of thinking time?
You are literally giving your brain a constructive job to do so it stops tearing you down.
Exactly. You are mapping the pit.
By deciding on those 3 sentences, you have built a bridge over the danger zone for tomorrow.
This doesn't just happen at work, though. Think about when you have a fight with a partner or a close friend.
Interpersonal conflicts are huge for this.
Rumination is lying in bed, replaying the tone of their voice, remembering the specific cruel word they used, and letting the sense of unfairness magnify until your heart rate is through the roof.
They're the most common triggers for these ghost loops. But the shift to reflection works the exact same way. You ask, what next?
Right.
You decide. This argument exposed a boundary issue between us regarding how we handle finances. Tomorrow morning, I will clearly state my bottom line in an objective, calm text message.
The major takeaway here is that rumination is entirely obsessed with the past. Productive reflection focuses on the present moment to actively protect your future.
Well said.
And the sources use a brilliant term for this mechanism: pattern recognition.
Pattern recognition is arguably the most valuable emotional skill a person can develop. It is the ability to zoom out and recognize your own social and emotional pits.
Like spotting a trap before you walk into it.
Exactly. If you know that you always end up having a harsh argument when you discuss money after 9:00 p.m., that is pattern recognition.
You see the hole in the sidewalk from a mile away and you just choose to walk around it.
Exactly. You are no longer surprised when you fall. You anticipate it.
And all of this cultivates a mindset that is forward-looking. You are anticipating the future rather than being held hostage by the past.
Right.
So if you are practicing your English alongside these psychological concepts, a powerful anchoring sentence to say aloud is simply shift focus from why to what.
That's a great one.
Or if you need a really firm statement of intent, you can say, I'm focusing on productive reflection, not emotional rumination.
And, making those declarations out loud is not just a language exercise. Hearing your own voice speak those words forces the brain to process the auditory information, which actually helps interrupt that internal silent loop.
Which brings us to the hardest part of all of this.
Here we go.
It is incredibly easy for us to sit here, fully rested, calmly discussing the logic of a cognitive shift.
Much easier said than done.
Oh, for sure. What happens when logic fails? You are physically lying in bed, the lights are out, your heart is pounding against your ribs, and your brain absolutely refuses to cooperate.
It happens to the best of us.
You intellectually know you should shift to what, but the emotional why is screaming so loudly you can't hear yourself think.
That is the ultimate test. What do you do when intellectual understanding is not enough to override your physiological response?
Yeah.
Because rumination isn't just a mental state. It triggers a cascade of stress hormones in your body.
You need an emergency physical stop button.
Yes.
And the sources provide a brilliant, actionable toolkit for this exact scenario. It is a 3-step late-night mindfulness practice called the Circuit Breaker Ritual.
I love that name.
It is designed specifically for those 2 a.m. moments when your brain is digging in the dirt.
It is a necessity. Because when you are in a state of high anxiety, your complex reasoning goes offline. You need steps that are simple, physical, and immediate.
Okay, step 1 of the Circuit Breaker Ritual is name the demon.
Name the demon.
When that painful, high-definition replay starts in your head, you force a clear label on it. You literally tell yourself, oh, my brain is ruminating again.
Right.
Tell us why simply giving it a name is so effective.
It comes down to basic neuroscience. When you are panicked and ruminating, your amygdala, that's the primitive emotional center of your brain, has essentially hijacked your nervous system.
Okay.
But when you force yourself to assign a label, to find a specific word for what is happening, you activate your prefrontal cortex. That is the logical, analytical part of your brain right behind your forehead.
So you are literally forcing the blood flow to move from the panic center to the logic center.
Exactly.
I like to visualize this with an analogy. When you're ruminating, it's like you're an actor on a stage, deeply caught up in a tragic drama, crying and shouting. You think the play is real.
Oh, I like that.
But the second you say, I am ruminating, it's like you step off the stage, walk down the stairs, and take a seat in the audience.
You're observing it now.
Yes. You are now just observing the play. You create instant psychological distance.
And that psychological distance is the crucial first wedge. Once you have a tiny bit of distance, you can immediately execute step 2, which is break the circuit.
We call this using a grounding technique. But how exactly does physical grounding break a mental circuit?
Well, rumination is a state of severe disconnection. Your physical body is resting safely in a bed, but your mind is time-traveled back to a hostile boardroom or back into the middle of a screaming match.
Right.
Your nervous system is reacting to a threat that isn't actually in the room with you. To fix this, you have to use tactile physical data to prove to your brain that you are safe.
Tactile meaning things you can physically touch or feel against your skin.
Right. The human brain has a limited processing capacity. It cannot easily process high-level abstract anxieties and immediate novel sensory inputs at the exact same time.
So you overload it a little.
Yes. You force a sensory input. You intentionally wiggle your toes, and you focus all your attention on the physical friction of your skin moving against the cotton bed sheets.
Yeah.
Or you place a hand flat on your stomach and simply feel the mechanical rise and fall of your diaphragm as you breathe.
You are overwriting the internal ghost movie with undeniable physical evidence from the real world.
Exactly.
You're telling your nervous system, look, I am in a quiet room, the temperature is cool, the blanket is soft, there is no tiger here.
You are pulling your system out of sympathetic fight or flight mode and guiding it back into parasympathetic rest and digest mode.
Which is why we call it a grounding technique. It takes your panicked mind, which is flying around in the past, and tethers it firmly to the solid ground of the present moment.
Beautifully put.
So, step 1, name the demon to get psychological distance. Step 2, break the circuit using physical, tactile grounding. That leads us to the final piece. Step 3, fill the pit.
This is perhaps the most difficult step for high achievers because it requires genuine self-compassion.
Yeah.
You cannot close a mental loop while you are still holding on to self-hatred.
The sources outline a very specific way to do this. You have to speak directly to the version of you that fell down that day.
Right.
You tell yourself, and this is a direct quote from the research, "We fell today, but we learned where the pit is. That's enough for tonight."
I love that phrase.
You actively forgive the mess up, and you declare that the workday is officially over.
That's enough for tonight. It is a profound statement of permission. You are giving yourself permission to drop the heavy burden of problem solving. You map the pit. The bridge is built for tomorrow. The work is done.
I love how having this vocabulary, circuit breaker, grounding technique, break the loop, moving forward, it gives you a structured, dependable scaffold to hold on to when the chaos of anxiety hit.
It really does.
You aren't just flailing in the dark. You are executing a proven protocol.
A protocol that respects both your emotional reality and your biological limits.
To bring all these concepts together, the sources provide a final, deeply healing affirmation. It is designed to be spoken quietly to yourself as you are lying in the dark, practicing your breathing and grounding techniques.
Let's read it slowly.
Yeah.
As you hear this, imagine that frantic, burning energy of the day finally cooling down and dissipating into the quiet room.
Okay.
You tell yourself, I refuse to ruminate on what I cannot change. I choose to break the loop tonight. My mind is a safe haven, and I leave the pits of today outside my door.
I leave the pits of today outside my door. It creates such a clear, protective boundary around your bed.
It really does.
So let's briefly summarize the journey we have taken today. We started in that universally painful 2 a.m. scenario, right? Trapped in the ghost loop of emotional rumination, endlessly chewing on the bitter cud of our mistakes.
We explore the evolutionary reasons behind why our brains cling to negative memories, and we learned how that chronic self-flagellation ultimately keeps us stagnant.
We then looked at the mechanics of the cognitive shift. We learned how to stop spinning our tires in the mud by abandoning the victim's question, why did this happen to me?
Right.
And adopting the problem solver's question, what can I do next? We shift our energy from useless rumination to productive reflection and forward-looking pattern recognition.
And finally, we detailed the circuit breaker ritual for those nights when logic simply isn't enough.
Step 1, 2, and 3.
Exactly. Name the demon to engage your prefrontal cortex, break the circuit using tactile grounding techniques to soothe your nervous system, and fill the pit by offering yourself the grace to rest.
You are now equipped with the psychological framework, the physical tools, and the exact English terminology to stop the cycle. Remember the core message of that affirmation. Your mind is meant to be a safe haven.
Yeah.
It is your personal sanctuary. It is absolutely not meant to be a midnight battlefield where you are forced to refight the mistakes of the day.
You have the right, and now the tools, to actively protect your peace.
I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to mull over on your own time.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have spent this entire deep dive examining how incredibly powerful our brains are at obsessively looping our failures. We do this to protect ourselves, so we memorize where the pits are.
Right.
But imagine for just a second, what incredible world-changing things could we achieve if we somehow trained our minds to obsessively loop and replay our successes,
Oh, wow.
our moments of brilliance, and our deepest connections with that exact same inescapable 2 a.m. intensity.
Now that is a mental loop I think we would all be happy to get stuck in.
Something to seriously think about. Until next time, keep reflecting, keep moving forward, and most importantly, sleep well.